before European ships ever reached the shores of South America, the Amazon rainforest was not an untouched paradise, but a vibrant realm of powerful civilizations, kingdoms, and empires. The myths of empty jungles and scattered tribes hide the truth of large cities, sophisticated agriculture, vast networks of roads, and deeply rooted cultures. This documentary will journey into the heart of the Amazon to explore the lost empires that thrived long before the conquest. We will uncover the secrets of ancient peoples who shaped the rainforest. We will discover how they lived, how they ruled, and how their legacy was nearly erased by disease, colonization, and centuries of silence. This is the story of the Amazon before the conquest. This is the story of the forgotten empires of the green world. The Amazon rainforest today stretches across 9 modern countries and covers over 5 million square kilometers. But before European contact, this massive land was home to millions of people who had learned to thrive in one of the most complex environments on Earth. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans have lived in the Amazon for over 11,000 years. In the early stages, people lived in small groups, relying on hunting, fishing, and foraging. But as knowledge of the environment grew, they began to shape the land in ways that made long-term settlement possible. One of the greatest innovations was terra preta, or dark earth, a rich, fertile soil created by mixing charcoal, bone, pottery, and organic waste. This soil could retain nutrients in a rainforest where most soils are poor, and allowed for permanent agriculture. It was not created by accident. It was engineered by ancient Amazonian societies. With fertile land, people could stay in one place, build villages, and support growing populations. Over time, these villages grew into towns, and towns into regional centers connected by long paths and rivers. This was not an empty jungle. This was a human landscape, carefully managed and developed over centuries. Researchers have found evidence of raised fields, canals, reservoirs, and causeways, all showing that Amazonian peoples built large-scale infrastructure adapted to the rainforest. These early builders were not just surviving, they were innovating. They were the foundation of what would later become true Amazonian civilizations. For centuries, the Amazon was thought to be too harsh and wild to support complex societies. European explorers described isolated tribes and endless forest, but they arrived after diseases had already devastated local populations. New satellite imagery and archaeological work have now revealed long-lost cities beneath the jungle canopy. In regions like Ake, Bolivia, and the Xingu River Basin, researchers have uncovered vast geometric earthworks, large plazas, ceremonial centers, and planned urban layouts. In some cases, hundreds of kilometers of interconnected roads and canals have been discovered, showing a level of organization far beyond small tribal life. One of the most extraordinary findings is in the Llanos de Mojos in modern Bolivia, where raised fields, dikes, and fish ponds stretch over thousands of square kilometers. These were the results of coordinated labor and advanced environmental management. In the Upper Xingu, archaeologists found large settlements laid out in precise circular patterns, connected by wide roads and surrounded by defensive ditches. These communities had central plazas, public buildings, and were home to thousands of people. The Amazonian cities were not made of stone like those in the Andes, but of wood, earth, and plant materials, which decayed quickly in the humid climate. This made them invisible to early European chroniclers and later historians. But the landscape still remembers. The forest regrew over temples and causeways, but the shapes remain. Today, LiDAR technology is helping archaeologists see through the forest canopy to map these forgotten cities. What emerges is a picture of a highly structured world, with politics, religion, commerce, and culture. The Amazon was not empty. It was a rainforest civilization. The people of the Amazon were not isolated. They built vast trade networks that spanned rivers, jungles, and mountains, connecting distant regions long before European contact. Ceramics, tools, feathers, precious stones, and food products were exchanged across thousands of kilometers. Obsidian from the Andes, bird feathers from the Amazon, fish from rivers, and salt from remote basins all moved along these ancient trade routes. River canoes were the highways of the Amazon. Communities used dugout canoes to transport goods, people, and knowledge. The major rivers of the Amazon served as commercial arteries, linking diverse cultures and economies. In their daily lives, people farmed using sophisticated techniques that improved the soil rather than depleting it. They created terra preta, or dark earth, a rich and fertile soil formed by mixing charcoal, compost, and organic waste. This innovation allowed dense populations to thrive in areas that would otherwise be agriculturally poor. Homes were often built in circular or rectangular clusters around communal plazas. Food was cooked in clay pots and stored in ceramic jars, decorated with intricate patterns that reflected identity and belief. Music, art, and ceremony played a central role in life. Shamans were spiritual leaders who guided the community through healing rituals and festivals. Body paint, feathered headdresses, and symbolic tattoos marked social roles and cultural identity. Language diversity was immense, with hundreds of dialects spoken. Each group had its own myths, legends, and oral histories that connected them to the land, animals, and ancestors. The Amazon rainforest was both a home and a sacred realm. Amazonian societies understood how to live in harmony with its rhythms. Amazonian societies were deeply spiritual. Their worldviews were shaped by the forest, the rivers, the sky, and the creatures that surrounded them. They believed in spirits that lived in trees, animals, and waters. Every element of nature had meaning and power. Shamans acted as intermediaries between the physical world and the spirit world. They used medicinal plants, chanting rituals, and hallucinogenic brews to enter trance states.
Ayahuasca, a powerful plant mixture, was central to many rituals, allowing visions and communication with spirits. These visions were not merely spiritual. They shaped decisions in politics, agriculture, war, and healing. The belief systems of Amazonian peoples were tightly woven into governance. Leaders often claimed spiritual authority and lineage from mythical ancestors or forest spirits. Political power was not only about force or wealth, it required a sacred connection to the land and its energies. Some communities had hierarchical leadership with chiefs or kings. Others used councils of elders or spiritual leaders. Conflicts were resolved through ritual duels, public ceremonies, or strategic marriages. Warfare was rare but not unknown. When it occurred, it was often tied to ritual honor or competition for resources. Victories were celebrated with communal feasts, music, and storytelling. Defeats could mean absorption into a dominant tribe or exile into the deep forest. Despite the rainforest's challenges, these societies developed sophisticated political systems that balanced spiritual belief with practical governance. Their leadership structures reflected a deep respect for nature, kinship, and ancestral guidance.
Long before European ships appeared on the Atlantic horizon, Amazonian empires were already facing change. Some were in decline due to environmental pressures, others expanding into new regions. The balance of power shifted constantly, with alliances formed and broken. But it was the arrival of foreign disease that changed everything. Even before direct contact with Europeans, smallpox, measles, and influenza swept across the continent. Carried by traders and early explorers, these diseases spread faster than any army. Entire villages were wiped out in months. With elders gone, knowledge systems collapsed. Without shamans, rituals were lost. Without leaders, political unity faded. By the time European explorers entered deep Amazonian regions, many great settlements had already vanished. What they encountered were fragmented communities, survivors of catastrophe, not representatives of peak Amazonian civilization. Spanish and Portuguese conquerors found little gold and fewer large empires to defeat. They assumed the Amazon had never been a cradle of civilization, but the truth was buried in the soil. Only in recent decades have archaeologists uncovered the remnants of those forgotten empires. Terra preta, engineered soil, revealing large-scale agriculture. Geoglyphs, visible from the sky, tracing ceremonial grounds. Defensive structures, canals, and settlements now overgrown by jungle. The conquest of the Amazon was not a battle fought on the battlefield. It was an invisible war of disease, disruption, and silence. The memory of Amazonian empires was erased not by swords, but by time. Yet their legacy lives in the forest, language, and spirit of the indigenous people who remain.
guardians of stories that once echoed through stone roads and sacred groves, echoes waiting to be heard again.